Can you please tell us, because you have cleared this exam yourself multiple times, what it takes, what are the key points that an aspirant can keep in mind so that they can crack this exam in the very first attempt?
Though you told me that I have cleared it multiple times, but not in the first or the second attempt. So it has taken some time.
Back when I started preparing, polity was the first subject that I picked up to, like 90% of other aspirants.
Most of the students, they focus on only one pillar, that is covering the syllabus, and that also they don't
Yes.
understand properly. 1/6 of the questions approximately come from this particular area. Most of the students is when they start the preparation, they just focus on the prelim centric preparation, and this prelim centric preparation, and again you have to be a little careful with regard to Lakshmikant. Though it is a most popular book, I wouldn't recommend only Lakshmikant for your entire polity. UPSC does not reward the knowledge. UPSC rewards one who can translate the knowledge into marks. So UPSC is not a very difficult examination in terms of the intellectual ability, but it is a very difficult exam in terms of your
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our very first Beginners Masterclass series session. We'll be conducting 6 more sessions throughout this week. So you'll get invites to all of them and it will help you understand how to begin your preparation. Before we formally start, can I just get an understanding of our audience? Which is going to be your attempt here? Can you please put down in the chat box? Also, throughout the session, if you get any queries, please post it in the chat box. Babu Sir will be taking all the queries towards the end of the session. Okay, great. So the audience is preparing for 2027, majority of you. That's great. We are conducting the series for beginners itself. Awesome. All right. So before we start, I just want to share something very personal from my own UPSC journey. So back when I started preparing, polity was the first subject that I picked up to, like 90% of other aspirants. Uh, Everyone told that polity is static, it is easy to comprehend, and it is highly scoring. So I obviously got hold of Lakshmikant, and it took me 2 months to complete the whole Lakshmikant. And I did it diligently. It was a lot of fun. I learnt about the parliamentary system. I learnt about how the judicial system of India works, the constitutional bodies, the articles, constitutional remedies. It was all very fun. So when I started taking tests later on, I realized that I could eliminate the options in the MCQs while solving the MCQs. I could also recall the articles and the amendments. But what I couldn't do was I was struggling a lot with analyzing the larger issues pertaining to Indian political systems. And I couldn't connect polity with current affairs. Also, the whole basket of GS paper too, right? I couldn't do the say that the interdisciplinary approach of the subjects. So, say for example, society. The questions with themes of sociopolitics, I was struggling a lot in those questions, and that's when it hit me that I have done polity only from the prelims perspective, and I've completely ignored the mains, essay, and interview perspective. So I had to replan my whole preparation. I had to uh, uh, change my whole timetable. That pushed back me completing all the other core subjects, and it was a complete mess. I could not complete my whole syllabus before my attempt, and it costed me my attempt. I failed in my first attempt. But later, when I started talking to my peers about it, I realized that a lot of other students also face similar issues. And this is why we have conducted this webinar so that you don't repeat the same mistakes. You don't, you learn from the mistakes of others and you don't do it in your very first attempt because uh, a lot goes into your first attempt. Of course, 1.5 year long time. These are few mistakes that can be avoided. So in this webinar, we will, by the end of this webinar, we would have learned about how to do polity and governance in an integrated manner. how to simultaneously prepare for prelims, mains, interview, ethics, and essay from the perspective of polity and governance, how to approach answer writing, note making, and current affairs linkages from day one. Okay, and largely how to prepare for your preparation, your first preparation properly, so that so that you can make your first 6 months the most productive months. Okay, to take this conversation forward, I have the best speaker, the best guest speaker that we could have, Babu Sir. I would really like to invite him today. He is our faculty of Polity, Governance, and Ethics. Babu Sir has cleared the UPSC exam 3 times. He scored 200 plus marks in his interview, and he's been teaching for 10 plus years. So, who better than him to take this conversation forward? Sir, thank you so much, sir, for joining today. I hope we'll learn a lot from you. We have a lot of questions for you today. Thank you so much for joining, sir.
Thank you, Vasundhara.
Thank you for taking time out. Sir, before we specifically delve into polity and governance, can you please tell us, because you have cleared this exam yourself multiple times, what it takes, or what are the key points that an aspirant can keep in mind so that they can crack this exam in the very first attempt?
All right. Though you told me that I've cleared it multiple times, but not in the first or the second attempt. So it has taken some time, and
Sure.
there has been a lot of learning.
Yeah.
So what it takes, probably a student who is preparing, say, 15 months prior, which is what the time right now we have got before they go for the 2027 attempt.
Yes, sir.
Assume the students are preparing for 2027. So the examination is not just about covering the syllabus. While most of the students, what they do is, it's not a very difficult thing for them to understand basically the entire syllabus. Everybody has got the intelligence to understand whatever is there in the syllabus. But do it in the very first attempt, it requires an all-round development. So there are different pillars that they probably have to focus upon. And what happens is most of the students, they focus on only one pillar, that is covering the syllabus. And that also they don't
Yes.
understand properly. Because there is also a trap in UPSC does not give an exhaustive syllabus. The syllabus are more indicative in nature.
Right.
First thing is they have to understand the scope of the syllabus, prepare the notes for those things, and they have to stick to certain basic materials which they have to keep revising again and again. This is just one aspect of it. And then in addition to this aspect, they should have a regular revision schedule probably.
Yes,
And
sir.
then for the knowledge to translate into marks, probably they should also know how they can get the marks out of their knowledge. So they'll have to focus on answer writing, probably solving the previous year questions. And of course, in addition to all those things, the most important thing is consistency. So they have to bring an element of consistency in doing all those things. If they focus on these different pillars with an element of consistency, and of course, there has to be motivation from the side of the students. So when they focus on all these things, I think 15 years prior to the exam starts. And I think once the prelim starts, it again goes for around 9 to 10 months. So 24 months of that continuous persistence will help them to go through in the very first attempt itself. So this is what it takes.
Perfectly answered, sir. Sir, polity is a core subject, and there are other core subjects as well. So, say for a beginner uh, who's imagining the next 6 months, for example, and they have decided, made a timeline that they'll complete the core subjects in the next 6 months, how can they develop a solid foundation in the core subject? That is first part of the question. And just completing the subjects is enough, or how to go deeper into the subject so that when they're preparing for all the three levels, prelims, mains, and interviews, sir.
All right. So that means you're trying to help the students understand that how they have to integrate
Yes, sir.
the preparation, so that it is not just about the prelims preparation. Because what
Right.
happens with most of the students is the moment they clear the prelims, then they're not sure what to do next.
Yes, sir.
Because the entire preparation has been prelim centric till the time they clear the prelims, and after that, hardly they're left with 3 to 4 months of time, maybe even less than that, to focus on the mains preparation. So this is something that they have to take care from the very initial stage itself. So let us take the example of polity. If you see polity, The moment you start preparing polity, they start reading about the Indian Constitution, which is mostly the polity related thing. And what happens in the prelims is mostly a conventional thing. Probably a little bit of current affairs is there. But whereas when it comes to the mains examination, the question may not be just about the recollection of facts, which may be the most important thing in the prelims probably. But when it comes to the mains, it is about a more analytical approach. So if I have to give one example, probably in the prelims, probably they have to remember the various fundamental rights or the themes of fundamental rights, but probably how they can integrate their mains preparation also once they read a specific fundamental. Let us assume the right to freedom of speech and expression. So at the same time, the student should also look into any current updates in this, any recent Supreme Court updates on the right to freedom of speech and expression. What are the various issues with regard to exercising this particular right in the first place? What are the various protection by the laws? So these are all the areas which they have to make an analysis. While the analytical part is more relevant for their mains, while the basic conceptual part or the factual part may be more relevant for their prelims. So these two things has to be integrated at the very initial stage itself. So once you understand the basic thing, so you'll have to do a little bit of exercise where you make an analysis of this analytical part. And then probably then you'll have to look into the previous year questions from that particular area. So once you keep doing this, probably that will take you to the next stage as well. Of course, you will fine tune it when you go to the main stage, but it is not that you'll just do everything when you go to the mains. So even before that, this has to be done. And coming to the aspect of interview, probably you also told me that how it can also be helpful to the interview. And this is again very important. The students think that, okay, I'll clear my mains examination and I'll prepare for the interview. That is, I don't think that will help them to clear the examination the very first attempt. And this I keep telling to all the students that from the very first day that they start preparing for the examination, they should keep thinking that they're already an officer and they have to start behave like that. So that is how they are gradually able to mold their personality, first place. And polity as a subject, it becomes extremely important for them to analytically think and to answer, because for every question they have to answer within a constitutional dimension, within a legal dimension, which they should be aware of. So that also, that understanding, that analytical thinking will also help them to answer appropriately to the questions that can be asked in the interview.
Right, sir. Sir, you teach polity, of course, and polity is well known as, say, the easy subject, the scoring subject, or the subject that has a well-defined syllabus. And a large portion of GS paper 2 is also polity and governance. So students usually start with this subject and they feel very confident when they prepare for prelims. But the picture is very different when it comes to mains preparation. So, sir, what are some of the glaring facts that students ignore while they are beginning the preparation? Of course, 2 3 years, 2 3 attempts down the line, it becomes evident. But what are some of the things the students can avoid from now on so that they don't fall into this trap?
The first thing is clearing prelims itself becomes a final target to most of the students. So we'll have to first come out of that particular mindset, because prelims is just, of course, a very important step, but that is not going to take you anywhere, just clearing the prelims. So you'll have to have that idea that we'll have to once go through the prelims, we'll have to go through the entire stage. So the preparation has to be well integrated in the first place. As I already said, so how do they integrate is, first, of course, the students to integrate this, they should be well aware of the conventional knowledge, which I think when you initially started the speech, I just listened that it took a couple of months for you to read the basic things. And there are multiple books that they can learn for. But one thing that I have to tell you is there's no specific source that you can rely upon completely for all the stages of the examination. So of course that they can give you a heads up probably in the prelims examination, but the students have to do their part if they have to do it for the mains examination. Let me just put it with an example. Suppose let us assume that you are studying the polity. So polity is just the rule book based on which the country is governed. It's just a structural framework. It's about the institutions by which our country is governed. And one of the important aspects of that institutional framework is the center-state relationship. Suppose a student studying for center-state relationship is looking into the constitutional provisions, therefore he understands as to what should be the relation between the center and the state, what are the dimensions based on which it is governed. But when you do those things, once you understand that, I'll also suggest the students to do a little bit of research, whatever the resources that is available, to just understand, okay, presently what are the issues between the center and the state. So presently, what are the various institutions that is with the center that can be used to create problem to the state? Say, for example, a lot of news is coming with regard to the office of the governor, how the office of the governor can create issues with regard to the center-state relationship. Now, if you read the subject will give you various constitutional dimensions related to governor, but it does not give you any practical application as such when you read the subject. So this kind of research has to be done by the students. Of course, when they're part of a class, when they're part of any experienced teacher, obviously they may give some illustrations on this. But that again may not be completely sufficient, because they'll have to consistently keep doing this. They'll have to consistently keep adding all those things during the entire stage of this preparation. So your convention knowledge plus a current update, and you should not just stop with the fact of the current update. You should go little beyond that. Okay, if you see this is an issue, so probably how this issue can be addressed. That is where your analysis comes into picture. And this analysis is exactly what is going to help you in the mains examination. And this analysis is exactly what is going to help you to do well in the interview process. So this analysis is what is missing in most of the candidates who fail to clear it in the first attempt, despite the fact that some serious students do clear their prelims in the first attempt, but they're not able to do in the mains as well as in the interview. So this analytical approach, if they keep doing it, then I think they'll be well placed, provided they also develop their personality over a period of time to get through in the very first attempt, and probably if not in the second attempt at least.
Right, sir. So very well explained, very practical advice, sir. So I think for the beginners, I think it would be great if you can actually walk us through all the, the way polity and governance can be done in an integrated manner. So if you allow me, sir, you take the stage over and I'll share my screen and share the presentation.
Sure. Just make it a little brief so that I can take a lot of doubts from the students, I think, which would be
Sure, sir. So I would also at this point urge the students to just drop your queries in the chat box so that sir can, answer your queries.
all right.
So just 1 second.
Yeah. Okay, I think this the students, most of them know that what is the relevance of the subject polity and governance. I've been specializing in this subject now more than 10 years. Polity becomes one of the important pillar of your prelims examination. Approximately 15 MCQs. That means 1/6 of the questions approximately come from this particular area. And then apart from that, around 125 marks. Last year, if you see the number of marks from which polity in GS paper 2 is 125 marks. That is approximately 50%. Then in addition to that, if you see governance, 40 marks. Around 3 to 4 questions do come from governance. So approximately 2/3 of the syllabus is coming from what is called as polity and governance. That's important. With regard to the GS paper 2 alone, but if you see GS paper 2, polity and governance, it does have overlap on the other areas as well, which I'll subsequently explain as we will move as to how this overlap is there with the other subjects. For example, GS paper 2 do have an overlap with the other areas. Say, for example, governance. If you see, governance talks about transparency and accountability. That transparency and accountability has an overlap with ethics paper as well. How to make the administrators behave ethically. Transparent administration will make them more behave more ethically. That's an application. And then if you see, polity helps you to understand the legal framework of various things. Say, for example, you understand the legal framework of Disaster Management Act, which may have an application for you to understand how disaster management can be done in your GS paper 3. So therefore, yes, your application of polity and governance is interdisciplinary. It may have application on the other areas. It does have application in your essay writing. It does have application in your interview process. Of course, there's a lot of overlap. Yes, Vasundhara, please proceed to the next one. So in addition to the importance, then the next important thing that you have to keep in your mind is, now polity and governance, to prepare it well, it requires an integrated approach. When I say integrated approach, integration of the conventional area of polity with the current affairs, integration of the conventional area of governance with the current affairs. So that's the first level of integration. I'll just give a quick example. I just spoke about one example as a center-state relationship. Let me take another example. Say, for example, there is a topic which is called as statutory bodies, constitutional bodies. So let us take the example of Election Commission of India, which is a constitutional body. We study conventional areas when it comes to prelims in the constitution. But today we do see a lot of controversial things with regard to what is done by the Election Commission of India as a part of the current affairs. So you should be in a position to integrate both these things. That's the first level of integration. Similarly, let us take the example of governance. So governance is basically what the government does. What are the functions of the government, how it makes the policies, how it delivers the policies for the welfare of the people. So while these are all the basic aspects of governance, but the practical aspect is you should look into the various criticism of various policies, why a particular policy is not very effective, why a particular policy, despite trying to ensure the welfare of the people, why it is failing. Say, for example, take the example of public distribution system. That's a public policy, but whether the policy has given the full benefit or not, that's an area of current affairs which we'll have to integrate. So the first level of integration is between the conventional area and the current affairs. The second level of integration, I would say, is how you can apply your knowledge of polity and governance in the other areas. Say, be it in ethics, be it in social justice part, be it in society part, so be it in the economics part. So it does have an interdisciplinary approach to the other areas as well. And the third level of integration is how you use this knowledge beyond the mains examination. Of course, this is first relevant to the prelims, then it is relevant for your mains, this analytical approach, and then it does have application in the interview as well. So that helps you to well explain the various things that you have understood. So this is how you'll have to integrate your preparation in the first place. All right. I do understand that you listen, you will have a basic idea today, but the more of things will come only when you start doing it. So but the first thing is you should know all these things, then comes the practical application part. But having said all these things, it's not that easy. There are a lot of challenges which you'll have to take care. Now, one challenge is, now what happens with most of the students is when they start the preparation, they just focus on the prelim centric preparation, and this prelim centric preparation continues till the time they clear the prelims. And for every major subject, I would say, be it polity, history, or whatever it is, which is almost on a similar scale when it comes to the prelims examination, at least, it takes almost 2 months of time, which is the time that you take to have a basic understanding of that subject. And then, of course, you will keep adding value to the understanding that you've got. Now, what happens is in those 2-3 months, there are a few things that you have to keep in your mind. You should not just restrict only to what is given in the constitution. Probably take the example of polity. So I'll just let me take another example. Suppose you study about the local bodies. There are part 9 and part 9A in the constitution, which talks about panchayat and municipalities. So while you learn about panchayat and municipalities in the constitution, which is the local bodies, you will understand that what is basically there in the constitution. But in addition to that, you should also work on why the panchayat and municipalities, despite given a constitutional status, is not able to achieve the desired result. So that kind of analytical approach is also required. And then you make a research on that. You note down the key points, try to understand those key points, and make a short note of that. So on the one hand, you have the conventional knowledge. On the other hand, you make an analytical research of why it has not been very effective till this point of time. What are the problems affecting its implementation? And not just the problems, you should also come out with certain solutions to address these issues. Because the problems and the solutions are most likely to come in your mains examination. And a similar question are also likely to come in your interview thing. So during the first 2-3 months when you prepare, it's not just the conventional area. You will have to make these analytical things as well and make a note of this. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing is not just making a note is going to help you. Then you'll have to have a constant revision schedule. That is again very important. For example, I would say a student, whatever he prepares on a particular day, that you should somehow revise it on the same day. So within 24 hours, the human capacity is not able to retain anything beyond 24 hours. So it is on the same day, within 24 hours, you should find time to revise it. And then just not one revision, then you should have some weekly revision plan as well, fortnightly revision plan, monthly revision plan, so that once you revise it for the first time, it will be in the process of entering into a long-term memory, but the repeated revision will take you to the long-term memory. But knowledge alone will not fetch you the marks. UPSC does not reward the knowledge. UPSC rewards one who can translate the knowledge into marks. So the first step is probably that you will have to do this. You'll have to consolidate your notes with the research, and then you have to revise is the second step. Then the third step is see whether with this knowledge you are able to answer certain previous year questions which has come from this particular area. So once you keep doing all the three things, I think you will be well placed. So if you take this particular approach, I think this approach might take a little bit of time, but it's a solid approach that you are taking. Maybe it will take 3 months instead of 2 months to complete polity, but that is fine. So in this way, you'll be prepared for both prelims and mains. And therefore, if you see the entire thing, you have got around 4 to 5 major subjects. So 2 to 3 months, 15 months, you will be well prepared, not only for your prelims, but also for the mains examination. And of course, it will be fine-tuned further once you clear the prelims and then you go to the mains examination. And the process of preparation is a continuous and an evolving process. But this level of preparation before the prelims will give a lot of advantage. It will give a lot of confidence to go for the mains examination. I think this is what you'll have to do before your prelims examination. So you'll have to keep doing this. All right. And just to extend, so what are the materials probably for polity and governance? I would say all these things are not required. You should not do all these things, but probably you can limit to a certain combination. Students who doesn't have any knowledge, so who have no background in polity, probably they can read the NCERT. The 11th class NCERT, our constitution, that's probably a must read for the students who have no basic idea. But if you've got the basic idea, this is not very important. Someone who has done the graduation already, for them it is not mandatory. But for someone who has no idea, you can just read it once. It will not take much time, probably a week time. Even if you are a slow reader, it is going to take a week time. That will help you to understand the basic keywords. But no way this NCERT is sufficient for your exam. So along with the NCERT, you can do Lakshmikant. And again, you'll have to be a little careful with regard to Lakshmikant, though it is a most popular book. I wouldn't recommend only Lakshmikant for your entire polity, because Lakshmikant is less analytical, it's more factual, more prelim-centric, and it does not give you any clue about the mains examination. So it has its own advantage. Well, it can prepare you for the prelims, but it doesn't completely prepare you for the mains examination. So I would suggest that someone who wanted to do Lakshmikant, you don't do it all the chapters. There are a lot of chapters that can be excluded, of course, not much relevant for the examination. And also the philosophical part in Lakshmikant is not well done. So therefore, for the philosophical area, you can refer to D.D. Basu. So when I say philosophical part, the first part of Indian polity, which includes topic like your preamble, the fundamental rights, the fundamental duties, the directive principles of state policy. These are the philosophical part. So the philosophical part can be done from D.D. Basu. Probably the remaining things can be done from Lakshmikant. But if you want to do D.D. Basu alone is sufficient. You can do completely D.D. Basu also. But the language used in D.D. Basu is a little on the tougher side. So therefore, for the students who wanted to use both, philosophical part you can do from D.D. Basu, remaining you can do from Lakshmikant. Or if you want to eliminate, you don't want to do both these books, there is one book also you can completely follow, Subhash Kashyap. That's a wonderful book that you can follow, this book also. Although it's not very popular, but you can just take my words. It's a well-written book, wonderful book that will not only give the relevant facts, but it also makes an analysis of certain areas. But having said all those things, any of these approach is not completely sufficient for your mains examination. All these has to be supplemented with the current affairs. The way that I've said, you'll have to make that research and you'll have to keep updating the relevant topics. So for current affairs, you can follow any popular news daily. Maybe you can follow Hindu, or you can follow Indian Express, or Indian Express plus Hindu partly. So that's up to you, and certain other articles like PIB. And of course, if you are part of any classroom program, you can also keep handy your class notes as well. So that can also help you. All right. So these are all the things how you can prepare the notes in the first place. So in addition to that, we'll also see the other areas like how we'll have to focus on the prelims preparation. So Vasundhara, can you just proceed to the next slide? All right. So this is with regard to the polity, but when you come to the governance, the problem with governance is even more because governance, the syllabus is more indicative. Governance does not have any prescribed credible material as such yet, because governance is a more practical thing. So as I already said, what is the difference between polity? So polity talks about the institutional framework, polity talks about the rules, whereas governance talks about the functions. What the government does is basically what is called as governance, how they formulate the policy. And while policy formulation, what the government has to keep in mind, it has to be more participatory in nature. There has to be tools of transparency and accountability. What are the functions of civil service? So these are all the things that is part of the governance. So the best approach for governance is UPSC gives an indicative syllabus. So probably through certain research, you can just try to add the different dimensions of these indicative syllabus, try to collect some materials, because I don't suggest any basic material for governance. So probably you can do it on your own, or if you're part of any classroom, you can follow up that. And then on top of that, you can add a lot of things based on the syllabus itself. And if you want further things, what you can do is you can just take the last 10 years of question, which has been asked from the governance, and try to see that whether your notes is able to answer all these 10 questions, all the questions that has been asked in the last 10 years. Probably if you see last 10 years, 30 to 35 questions will be there. So whatever notes that you make, your note should be able to answer all these 35 questions. Then you are almost prepared. And further, you'll understand that the problem with governance, as I already said, because it's more application oriented, it will have a lot of overlap in the other areas also. So that overlapping and the interdisciplinary approach should be developed over a period of time, which you will understand once you start doing the thing, as I said. All right. Now, the next thing that probably you'll have to keep in your mind is, okay, how do I prepare for prelims and mains? Do I have to do it separately, or should I do one approach at a time? Now, that is again very important. Most of the successful candidates try to understand that it should be an integrated approach. It should be an integrated approach, but priority has to be given to one level before the respective areas. Say, for example, if you start the preparation, let us assume, let us assume by April, or by let us assume March, then till January next year, it has to be an integrated approach. By January, you'll have to shift the mode. It should be a prelim-centric mode. And then you'll go into a prelim-centric mode. And then it is prelims focused. And then once you complete the prelims examination, then you'll again switch gears to the main-centric mode. It is not that from now till, let us assume, the prelims examination, you will go on prelims mode. That is not going to help you again in the mains examination. You may clear the prelims, but your chances of clearing the mains examination is very less. And right now, if you start the preparation, it should not be only an integrated approach for prelims and mains. As I already said, it should be an integrated approach for your interview as well. All right, so that is again very important. But though it is an integrated approach, I'll tell you that when it comes to application, when you come to answering the question, it requires a different level of answering. So for example, in a prelims, it's more of fact oriented. There may be few analytical, there may be few applied questions, but more a fact oriented question. But when it comes to mains examination, it is more an analytical question. So that analysis has to be done beforehand, as I already said. Say for example, let me take an example in governance. So far I've been given examples in polity. Say example, if there is a question on the governance, they may ask you some in the prelims examination, they can give you certain things, and they can ask you which of the above are provisions of the Right to Information Act. So that can be a prelim centric thing. But in the mains, the question is, though there is a Right to Information Act, which has been almost 2 decades old, why the Right to Information Act is not able to achieve its objective? So therefore, it is not about the provisions in the Right to Information Act, which anyways you should be aware of, but it is more about the analysis. Okay, these are the provisions. What prevents this provision from getting implemented? What are the solutions that can be put in place to address these things. So that kind of analysis will help you. All right. So this is how you'll have to focus for the mains examination. So it's the same understanding, probably the same knowledge, but you will have to have a different level of approach and presentation for the mains examination. And almost a similar kind of question may be asked in the interview as well. So one quality that you'll have to develop is to be successful, that you express more in very less words. And in the interview also, this quality will be appreciated. The more you communicate, but the less you talk. So that is a quality that the board is going to appreciate. All right. Yes, Vasundhara, just please proceed further. All right. So that is, I think I have already covered this answer writing paradox also. If you see the answer writing, who will be getting? Sometimes the students feel that that they have written a lot of things, but the marks has not been proportional. Because what happens is UPSC does not appreciate the quantity, UPSC appreciates the quality. So when I say that they appreciate the quality, and this is also something that I see with most of the students, I do not know how it has been spreading to the students. They feel that they'll have to, suppose for a question, there are 3 pages that is given. Most of the students today feel that they have to fill all the 3 pages. Now, 3 pages is the space it is given. It doesn't mean that you'll have to fill all the 3 pages or the 2 pages. Of course, if you know, you can write. But filling them is not the end. That's not the end in itself. The idea is the space is given depending upon the writing style of different students could be different. So therefore, they give a maximum space. But what is more important is a quality. And when I talk of quality, answers should be focused on not writing whatever you know. Answers should be focused on writing what is relevant to the question. And only when you write what is relevant to the question, you will get the marks. So therefore, when you prepare, you'll have to prepare first the conceptual area, make this analysis, the analytical area. And then on top of that, I already told the third pillar is you'll have to keep practicing the previous year question and start writing the answers. The sooner it is better. Probably I will from the very first day you can start writing the answers. Of course, the very first day when an answer may not be good, that's okay. But the very first day you start writing the answer, will gradually improve over a period of time. Say maybe after writing 100 answers, you feel like you are writing an answer. But that itself is going to take around 3 to 4 months if you are consistent enough. Someone who has not done that, then who is already lagging by 3 to 4 months, you have an age of an early start. Therefore, you start writing, that's the first thing, but then gradually it will improve. And then you will gradually understand. So start writing is just to make sure that you are comfortable enough to present whatever you know. That's the first step. Then comes the next step of understanding what is there in the question and writing relevant to that particular question. So the first thing has to be, step has to be taken care first. So start early and then gradually develop the skill of writing what is relevant to the question, not that whatever you know. This is most of the students do, and they fall into the trap of writing whatever they know. That is not going to fetch you the marks. All right. So once you develop this ability, I think your answer writing skill will also be taken care. So it is as simple, start writing early. So gradually you'll develop that skill.
Thank you so much, sir. I couldn't help but think throughout the session that if I would have gotten a hold of you in my first attempt, probably I would have not end up wasting so much of time that
So
you
this also
explained with so much of clarity.
this also comes with a lot of experience, of course.
Yes, of course, sir.
10 years to get this clarity. I mean, a lot of clarity is even coming after clearing the examination. So while
Of
teaching,
course. Course, sir. So for the audiences, I just wanted to announce that Babu Sir teaches Polity and Governance in our GS Foundation batch, and a new batch is starting from 9th of March. So, like Sir said, we start focus on answer writing from the very early, from the very first week. So, whatever we teach in the class, there's a test every Sunday for prelims as well as mains, so that like any gap in the preparation can be identified very early on into the preparation and can be fixed. Okay, so we run classes, we run revision classes. There are notes, of course. And if anybody wants to know more about GS Foundation, you can put up your query in the chat box. So, sir, now we'll pick up a few questions from the chat
sure,
box.
sure.
Sir, Bhumi has asked, is studying the Bare Act necessary for the polity preparation?
All right, so that's a good question. So I would say that students who are about to prepare, probably, if you are not followed any of the book till this point of time, you can also keep a barrack. But someone who already prepared on a particular book, they are comfortable with that. So that's not mandatory. But if you are about to prepare and if you are comfortable reading the language of Barat, and that would be the best thing, because now what happens that from my experience is sometimes students don't understand whether something is part of the constitution or not. Because when you read polity also, what happens is not everything that is given probably in the Lakshmikant book or the other text can be part of the constitution. But when you read the Bare Act, you are sure that okay, it is part of the constitution. So sometimes UPSC asks this question: which of the above are part of the Constitution of India? Is it mentioned in the constitution? So sometimes students come to an understanding whatever is given in Lakshmikant is part of the constitution, not necessarily. Sometimes it can be part of the ordinary laws in our country. So that kind of clarity is better once they read the Bare Act. And they also try to get the understanding probably better. But the drawback is the language is on the little tougher side. So therefore, I would say that it is not mandatory, but someone who is comfortable reading it, they can keep it.
Right. So there's a follow-up question on this. After reading the Bare Act, is it necessary to exhaustively read Lakshmikant?
No, you can do it selectively.
Okay. Right. So
But
next
yes, but
question.
when you say that you can read it selectively, either you should have the expertise or try to get to someone who has the expertise to guide you.
Okay. Sir, next question is, what are the sources that you will advise for prelims and mains? I think Sir has already. Sir, do you want to add on the sources that you have already mentioned?
No, that is sufficient. You'll have to keep your
Okay.
sources very limited, but revise it again and again and keep updating your material based on the current affairs. It is not there's no benefit of reading 10 materials. That's not going to help you. But probably you'll have to keep one material, read it 10 times, and
Right.
keep updating that with the relevant current events and the relevant analysis that we told. So that update has to be continuous and regular.
Sir, there's a follow-up question on this too. If you have any suggestions for the sources for studying governance, I think you have covered that part too, but if you want to add on that.
I'll just reiterate what we said. So for governance also, there's no credible source, but you can just look into the UPSC syllabus. I think the syllabus includes important aspects of governance, tools of transparency and accountability, citizen charter, and then they talk about role of civil services in democracy. These are the more indicative words.
Right.
So for the indicative words, you can try to get some basic definitions, basic examples, basic concepts, which you can do it by doing a basic research. And then how do you understand whether this content is sufficient or not? You just try to consolidate the last 10 years of question paper and see what questions have been asked from this particular area, and whether you see that whether you are able to answer these questions from your content. If you're not able to answer, just try to prepare content for those questions and then consolidate as a part of your content, and that content is sufficient enough for you to appear in the coming exam. If you have done this much, and then you are already better than the most of the candidates who may be appearing for the examination.
Right. So next question is, how much time should one take when they start polity for first iteration?
First iteration, again, there's no hard and fast rule. It depends upon the appetite of an individual for that particular subject, his liking, his intellectual capabilities. So it depends on that. So, but I think for any student who may not have a in-depth knowledge, or someone who may have just read only in their school, probably does not have much knowledge, it's very likely it is going to at least take 2 months of time is what you will have to give it initially. But this is like a median, but there can be always extremes. So extremes is different, but I'm just talking about the median. So in the median, around 2 months of time, probably. Maybe you can take little more also. So there is no hard and fast rule that you have to complete in 2 months. Maybe you can take more, maybe you can take 3 months also. But what is important is that you'll have to value the time, which means the time has to be spent productively. That is what is very important.
Right. So at LevelUp IS, how much time do you take to complete polity classes?
So we take approximately around 80 to 90 hours to complete the
Okay,
subject.
sir. And how long does that go in weeks or months time, sir?
So that will be approximately, you can say, around 2.5 hours a class. and let us assume 6 classes a week, which is 15 hours. So it will go approximately around 5 to 6 weeks,
Okay.
excluding the Sundays or probably any other leave. So otherwise, it is approximately 5 to 6 weeks, which is around 45 days of time.
Okay. So, how to make mains notes and continuously update with current affairs.
Okay, so how to make mains notes? So if you are preparing on your own, there is no separate mains notes. So first what you'll have to do is, first you'll have to understand the conceptual area. Say let us take the example of center-state relationship, or say let us take the example of what is called as there's a topic. Okay, before that you'll have to understand one thing. Now there are few topics which may be relevant for both prelims and mains. There are few topics which may be specific only for prelims. There are few topics which may be relevant only for mains. So wherever topic which may be relevant for both prelims and mains, say for example, fundamental rights has relevance in both areas. But there are few topics even in the polity which may be more relevant for the main. Say for example, there's a topic which is called a separation of powers. Now, well, separation of powers is a philosophical idea, and that idea is not much relevant for your prelims, but it's one of an important topic for your mains examination. So the first thing is, so as you will get into the subject, you will understand that over a period of time, okay, what is relevant for prelims, what is relevant for mains. So wherever it is relevant for prelims and mains, you can have an integrated approach. So first you write whatever is your conventional understanding. On top of the conventional understanding, you should understand where a mains question can be asked. Say, for example, you take fundamental rights. If you take fundamental rights, it's relevant for both prelims and mains. But not in every fundamental right there can be a mains question. The possibility is not there. The scope is not there. So there you understand Article 19. In Article 19, that too especially right to freedom of speech and expression is more relevant for mains. And Article 21, the right to life and personal liberty is more relevant to the mains. Therefore, you should have one note. And in that, wherever you feel like it is relevant for the mains area, there you'll have to make a little bit of analytical approach. And then you keep updating it. And wherever it is relevant only for the mains, there it has to be a complete analytical approach. So this is the way you'll have to keep making your notes. And that once you start doing it, you will get that idea better.
Right. Sir, another student asked, we used to listen from a lot of toppers that they have made notes on every topic of the syllabus. So, sir, I want to know how they make notes for polity and governance part. Plus, they have 3 years till their first attempt. So, they want an approach that they can follow until then.
So basically, you'll have to look into the syllabus. So I will tell that basically, if you want to make the notes, now the note making becomes very, very important for the mains. I wouldn't say that the note making becomes very important for both prelims as well as mains, but somebody wanted to make note making for the prelims also, they're welcome to do if you have the time to do that. But why it becomes note making becomes very crucial for the mains is once you're going to make your own notes, it becomes easy for you to recollect and reproduce. Because while making the note itself, you're not just basically note making itself again an art. It is not that you are just copying something. That is not note making. Note making is that you understand something and then you write it in your own words in the way that you can recollect it later. So probably when you do that, automatically a connection is already established in what you write and between your mind. So therefore it becomes easy for you to revise and recollect the things. And it also becomes much more easier for you to reproduce in the examination and also to amend that and write it in different format. It's like a fluid. You can fill it in any form once you make the note. But what happens when you consume directly from the text, that it is not in a very fluid form. So therefore, you cannot just use it as per the requirement of the question.
Right.
So first of all, you'll have to understand what is note making. Note making means not merely copying it from some source or copying and pasting it. That is not note making. Note making is understanding the essence and just putting the essence on the paper. Therefore, you can reproduce it. How to do that? So first thing is you'll have to go to the syllabus. So you just open the main syllabus. We'll understand that there are a lot of keywords that is given in the main syllabus. First, you'll have to go through each and every word. You should have an understanding probably, which will not come immediately. I do understand, which will come by the time you complete your basic preparation. So by the time you complete your basic preparation, and then during the process, for example, the moment you complete the fundamental rights, you have a basic idea of what is right to life and liberty, then only you will be able to understand, okay, what type of questions are asked in the mains examination. And accordingly, for that particular topic, you can write it. You can prepare the notes. And then whenever you prepare the notes, I'll always say, at least try to go back and see the last 5 years of questions in UPSC. So whether this note that I prepared is help me, will it help me in answering those questions? If not, try to prepare notes for the key concepts in those questions. So in this way, if you keep updating your notes, and then I think you will be ready. But having said that, that's not an easy process. It's a very laborious process. So UPSC is not a very difficult examination in terms of the intellectual ability, but it is a very difficult exam in terms of your attitude, in terms of your consistency. It is going to test more your personality rather than your intelligence.
Very well said, sir. Coming from somebody that has cleared it for multiple times, of course. Sir, Kiran has asked they are going to attempt in 2028, and can they read Lakshmikant now? And after some understanding, can they read DD Basu, or do they study in an integrated manner?
You can just try out to read DD Basu, the philosophical part, directly from DD Basu. I don't suggest that once reading one book, then to go after the other book. You just try to read the philosophical part of DD Basu. If you are comfortable, just read it from there. In case if you're not comfortable with that, then you can just read Lakshmikant, and then maybe you can try to read the other book. So anyways, in DD Basu, the philosophical part is wonderfully given. The other part is also very good. But if you're not comfortable too much, then probably the rest of the area, you can read it in Lakshmikant, but not reading Lakshmikant and then go to that. You try to read it directly. In case if you have any difficulty in comprehending, then you can follow that approach.
Uh, so, what are the reports or government documents which we should read for 2027?
Okay, so there's no specific report per se is very important as such now, because once you are good in the current affairs, most of these reports and all those things will be covered in various articles. And when you read various magazines and articles and you keep updating it, anyways, these things will be covered as such. There were a few years back, say for example, when I used to give the examination probably a decade back. So we used to read the second ARC and all those things, because second ARC was the latest report at that point of time. So it came in 2007 probably. And then it continued for another 10 years. UPSC started asking one or two questions probably from that. But now I think we are almost 2 decades old after the second ARC report, which itself is a very old report. Therefore, I don't think any direct questions might come. So that's not very important. But what becomes important is updating with the current events. That's sufficient. And many of these reports will anyways be quoted in the articles and all those things. So you don't have to unnecessarily spend time again reading those reports. And reports are very bulky. And if you read 100 pages, probably you'll have 1 page of note, which may be relevant for UPSC. So I don't think that is a very important thing.
Sir, a student has asked how to revise Lakshmikant in such a manner that the complex and technical language stays in the memory.
That's only you'll have to do it repeatedly again and again. There's no magic that somebody can say that this is the way you'll have to do it. Probably one thing that you have to keep in your mind is normally students feel that reading Lakshmikant is easy, polity is easy, for the reason that the moment everybody reads, they will have a hang of the subject. They feel that they understand most of the things. But what is the thing that you have to keep in your mind is that even a small change in your understanding can change a complete meaning, and therefore it may lead to a mistake. So therefore you'll have to be very you'll have to have full concentration when you read it. That's one thing. And then the second thing is probably test it with the previous year questions. Try to do as many multiple choice questions. Therefore you understand your understanding is right in the first place or not. That's also very important. So basically, to answer the question, it is multiple revision schedule that will help you to do that.
Okay, sir. So, prelims questions language is understandable for a student, but when I read mains question, it seems to be a legal language. How to achieve that level of understanding in questions?
No, the mains, if you see, that's UPSC is very good at that. UPSC is not going to ask you very difficult question. I mean, the question or the answer that they expect from you is already the knowledge you may have. They only just try to make the question framing a little difficult, nothing more than that. So once you go through the questions again and again, probably as I said that whenever before you go to the examination, try to make sure at least you have a hang of last 5 years question that has been asked from every topic in the syllabus, so that panic will not be there when you go to the examination, and most of the question might look familiar. What happens with UPSC is they pick the question from the same theme. Say, for example, fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression may be a recurring theme. Right to life and liberty may be a recurring theme. Only just they reframe the questions here and there little bit, and they twist it here and there. So probably once you have a hang of it, then you will not have this kind of difficulty.
Okay. So what are the steps that you want to give to anyone that can maximize the chance of clearing the prelims in first or second attempt?
So 3 pillars that I have told. One is, this examination is not about the test of intelligence. So it is not about just studying the relevant things. Of course, it's very important that you'll have to focus on what is the scope of the syllabus, try to understand the scope of the syllabus, restrict yourself to only certain basic material. Do not compare yourself with others. If somebody of your friend is doing a new material, don't just jump into that particular material. You take your time, make your research, and try to pick one particular material which may suit you, because there's no single path. So there are a lot of materials, but you'll have to stick to 1 or 2 materials and then read the relevant things. Second thing is, try to integrate your preparation, which I said that it should not be just prelim centric. It is only an integrated approach, but it has to be prioritized to prelims before just the prelims. Otherwise, it should be an integrated approach. So try to follow that integrated approach, and then try to repeatedly revise, frequent revision, and then of course, in addition to the revision and the preparation, try to do the previous year questions, which includes both the mains questions as well as the prelims question. So if you integrate all these things, and in addition to that, you think that you are an officer already. It is not that once you clear the examination you become an officer. You try to think that you are already an officer. So I think that will help you to do it in the first attempt, if not at least in the second attempt.
Yes, sir. So I think that is our time. Maybe we can take one more question. Sir, how many tests or number of questions, prelims and main should be given after completing a subject?
I would say that there is no limit to this. At least for your prelims, there's no limit, but minimum try to do 15 to 20 years from every topic. But if you have the time, you go beyond. The more you do, it is better for the prelims. The more you do, more is the conceptual clarity, more is your confidence. So the more you do is better. There's no limit, but minimum you can keep a minimum benchmark standard of say around 20 years probably.
Okay.
And say, let us assume for your mains examination, a benchmark standard of say 5 years. And even you don't have to go beyond that, because doing 5 years itself is a very challenging thing. But yes, try to do at least 5 years. For your mains, for your prelims, you can do 20-25 years.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. I think that was our time. I'm glad that we could have this conversation with you. And I think the clarity that students have for preparing for polity and governance now, I think their approach would completely change. So, do you have any closing words for the students that have joined our webinar today?
Thank you, Asandra. One thing is that sharing all those things gives me immense pleasure. But having said all those things, I didn't myself have this clarity for the first, say, let us assume 6-7 years when myself was a student, even after clearing the examination. So it happens over a period of time, and there will be time which will be testing probably the patience of the students, where they feel like giving it up in between somewhere, or there will be a lot of distractions. And this is something which is not unique for a particular candidate. I think almost every candidate goes through this. So therefore, there is nothing to feel bad about all those things. One who is persistent and who's able to move away from that and come out of all those things, I think then they will come out with the success and flying colors. And I feel very happy to share my experience with all the students, and I would like to convey my best wishes to all the students who are part of this webinar. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much, sir. Thank you so much for joining today. Thank you for taking your time out. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.